Hello and welcome to Homer for Thursday, July 10th, 2025. Today we will be reading from lines 368 down to 383 in Book 11 of the Iliad. Thank you so much for being here today, and let's figure out just how bad the arrow strike is on Diomedes' foot. Let's do it. So spake he, and went on to strip the armor of the son of Paeon, famed for his spear. This is Diomedes. But Alexander, lord of fair-haired Helen, aimed an arrow at Tydeus' son, shepherd of the host, leaning the while against a pillar on the barrow that men's hands reared for Ilus, son of Dardaanian, an elder of the people in days of old. Now Diomedes was stripping the gleaming corslet of valiant Agastrophus from about his breast, and the shield from off his shoulder, and his heavy helm, when Paris drew the centerpiece of the bow and smote him. For not in vain did the shaft speed from his hand. Upon the flat of the right foot, and the arrow passed clean through and fixed itself upon the ground. And with a right merry laugh, Paris leapt up from his lair and spake vauntingly, Thou art smitten, not in vain hath my shaft sped. Would that I had smitten thee in the nethermost belly, and taken away thy life. So would the Trojans have had respite from their woe, who now tremble before thee as bleeding goats before a lion. Awesome, let's sing it in Greek. Kai paionidain duari clutonex anarisdain. Autor Alexandros lenes posiseu quacoio. Autor Alexandros lenes posiseu comoio. Tua deide epitoxetidain et opoi meni lauon. Stelle keklimenos androk medoi epitumboi. Iulu Dardanidau palaiu de megorontos. Etoio mentore kagastropo iftimoio. Ainuta poste ethes vipanaio non aspiretomon. Aspiretomon. Kai koruta brira reno de toxu pechon anelkei. Kai balenuara de min halion belosek fubekeros. Parson dexiteroi opados dia amperesios. En gaie catepecto hode malaher dugelasas. Ecloquam pedes caeo comenos weposauda. Beble aiudalion belos ecfugan hos felontoi. Neaton, nauton escaneon abalon ectuum halestai. Huotoken kai tro esenepno san kakotetos. Oetes epefrikas ileonthos me kadesaiges. Awesome. All right, Paris is here. Alexander, that is. Yeah, great. So I don't know if you guys remember from like 2 days ago, but one of the two is like Odysseus and Diomedes was like, we should not let off, right? Let's not Alex Motha, or I don't know, Alex Mesla or something like that. What was the word? Let me see if I can find it. Alex something. Let's not retreat. Where was it? Yeah. Allegades daumen kai alexomestamenontes. Let's remain and fend them off. Alexomestamenontes. Right. And then we have this little midpoint here, right? And then who do we have that shows up, right? But Alexander, whose name is Alexandros Helenes Positeu Komoyo. I think it's always cute that Alexander's referred to by the beautiful hair of his wife. Oh yeah, Alexander, the husband of Helen, who has beautiful hair. I think it's great. I think it's very cute. Anyway, I think it says a lot about Alexander's character that he's coming out of the Lokos, right? There's a lot to be said for the bow and the arrow, right? So, what's this word right here? Diomedes, Ios, right? Ios is not just this. It's kind of, there's like something, poison, right? It also means poison, which is like the poison that's like on the arrow, right? Because arrows are both a proxy for war because you fire them from afar, but they're also like proxies for damage because, you often like put arrows into poison and then you fire them at your foes, and it makes them hurt more because they get diseased and they die, which is very different than like a blow to the head, which obviously like ends your life immediately. That's much more Iliadic. There's not a lot of wounding and dying later from disease or sepsis or the other things that happen on a war plane in the Iliad. It's a lot of people just dying. And so it's interesting that, he, first of all, he's standing under the tomb of his elder, right? And then second of all, right, he's laughing as he jumps out, right? And he was hiding, right? El komonos weposauda, right? Interesting, like, entreating words, I think, prayerful words, right? Spake vauntingly, right? It's more like, it's almost like the El Komonos is like, he's prayerful because he's literally at the tomb of like, the father of Ilion, right? Which is Dardanus, right? Elder of the people of the days of old. And there's something that like frames the sort of attitude of the Trojans right there, right? Which is that there's a hierarchy here. So Alexander, then mentions like, I wish I hit you even better because, all my other friends, they fear you like a lion because they're bleeding goats, right? Bleating goats, not bleeding goats. They get a, rest, reprieve, right? The rest and reprieve for the Achaeans before was like, they get a breath because they're being defended by their warriors as they're doing this like active retreat, right? And even though the Trojans are currently on the procession, right, Alexander still thinks of his comrades as bleeding goats, right? So it's like Alexander is a little distanced, right? And it just shows you a bit of the texture of the Trojan people and their style and their difference between the Argives. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for being here. Thanks for reading this with me, and I look forward to sharing more Homer with you tomorrow. Take care and have a great day. Bye.